We have a tight agenda today, so I will get underway. Do we have people that are logged on, Rhonda?
Yep.
Terrific. Great. Welcome to Thinking Outside the Blue Bin, Special Recycling Explained. Some people look forward to Thanksgiving. Some people look forward to the 4th of July. We look forward to National Battery Day when we can talk about special recyclables. We are very glad to be joining you today, and thanks for tuning in. We have a very packed agenda, so we will be moving quickly. My main goal for the day is not to speak like an auctioneer so that you can follow me. But we do have a lot to cover. We will be breaking for questions at a couple junctures. And there's your agenda. So we'll start with a little background. We'll then talk about what you can recycle through special recycling at our facilities. Then we'll get into other opportunities for special recycling. And we'll break at that point, but note that we will be diving deeper into a few of the materials. So you may want to, you can certainly submit your questions, but we probably won't be answering questions about those deeper dive materials until we get there. And we will break midway through that for another question session and finish with more time for questions, because we recognize that we are not going to have time to get too deep into anything. So we're going to let you tell us what you want to know more about.
All right, and if you do have questions, this is Rhonda here. If you do have questions, you want to use your Q&A box at the bottom, please. We won't be checking the chat or the raise your hand options. I mean, we can keep an eye on it, but we will be, Robin and I will be streamlined on the Q&A. So Robin and I will be the wing people for that. We'll be answering some questions live. We'll be answering some right on there. Please pay attention. You can see the questions that have been answered, so please do peruse that before posting your question, because maybe somebody already answered it. Like Ethan said, we will be taking a break after we explain all the different types of programs that are offered in our county. We'll also be taking a break for questions after the deeper dives. So yeah, and then after all of that, we will have your questions answered. And whatever is not answered, we will try our best to answer those in the follow-up email that you will be getting in 2 days. So hold on to your hats. Here we go.
Thanks, Rhonda. And I apologize for not introducing you and Robin. Not only are they going to be your main question answerers, but they are also presenting today. So very quickly, for those who are not familiar with Chittenden Solid Waste District, CSWD, we are a public municipality. So we are a not-for-profit organization that is governed by a board of commissioners with a representative, volunteer representative from each town in Chittenden County. And we are on county lines representing all the residents of all the towns and businesses of all the towns in Chittenden County. You may know us best from having visited our facilities. One of the facilities you probably have not visited or may not have visited before, unless you've been on a tour, is a materials recovery facility where all the blue bin material is brought to be sorted for recycling. So that's the sort of the guts behind blue bin recycling. Today, we're going to be talking more about the stuff that doesn't go in the blue bin, and we'll get to the facilities where those can go. Green Mountain Compost is an organics facility. It's our organics diversion facility, which is very busy processing all the food scraps that are no longer allowed in the landfill. Our drop-off centers are usually the answer to where you can recycle your special recycling by bringing it to one of our drop-off centers scattered throughout the county. Our Williston drop-off center is our special waste facility. So that is where all the materials that CSWD collects for special recycling can be brought. Other depends on the material as far as whether we accept it at other drop-off centers. And then there is some overlap with hazardous materials. And so some of the stuff that you can bring to drop-off centers can also be brought to the environmental depot, where we take all kinds of hazardous waste and make sure it is responsibly disposed of. We point out just very briefly that if we're not recycling it in the blue bin or composting it or special recycling it, it's winding up going 75 miles away from the center of Chittenden County, 75 miles-ish, to Coventry, Vermont, where the only operational landfill is. And as you can see, not everything that is going to Coventry to be landfilled is actually trash. There's a lot of stuff that could have been kept out of the, including the special recyclables you see as the orange slice. It's worth noting, however, that the special recyclables are defined as textiles, scrap metal, clean wood, plastic bags, electronics, and hardcover books. For purposes of this data, We will be talking more broadly about special recyclables, so it will also include recyclable construction materials, building materials, and that's the recoverable C and D slice. So really, when you start talking about all of that material, you're looking at over 16,000 tons and about 13% of the material sent to landfill, which was divertible building materials or special recyclables. And we like to point out that those special recyclables often are prioritized with programs because they have particularly hazardous components or are problematic for the environment in some way. So they have sort of a bigger environmental impact in being landfilled than perhaps some other materials. And we just define special recycling. I will point out that we're defining it very broadly here. In CSWD programs and non-CSWD programs. What we're not including in our discussion today is all the internal business programs that exist out there. There are a lot of businesses that manage their materials responsibly through recycling it internally in their corporate programs, and we are not going to get into that territory. So here is the list of all the special recyclables that we collect at our Williston drop-off center, and in some cases other drop-off centers. Natural wood includes both untreated, unpainted lumber, as well as tree branches and so forth. And it's worth noting that the natural wood and tires, along with used motor oil, are all may wind up being used as fuel. So reasonable people will disagree about whether or not that is true recycling. It does not count as recycling in terms of the state's data, but obviously it means that it's not going to the landfill and it is going to some use. In the case of natural wood, it may be going to McNeil to be made into power. Tires go out of state and may be turned into products like rubber mulch or other things, but we know that in many cases they are being incinerated out of state. And motor oil, incidentally, is used as a fuel to heat our facilities. So the environmental depot, the hazardous waste facility, and some other facilities of CSWDs are heated with your used motor oil. Propane tanks and appliances obviously need to be emptied of hazardous contents or components, including like refrigerant in the case of AC units or refrigerators, before they can be recycled. Once they've been serviced to remove those hazardous items or components, then they can go into scrap metal. And I will put in a plug for scrap metal here because it is wonderful in that its metal is infinitely recyclable over and over again. All something needs to be recycled in the scrap metal container by bringing it to a drop-off center is at least 80% metal. Doesn't matter whether it's painted or has Teflon on it, 80% metal and no hazardous materials in it, and it can go right into the scrap metal container. We'll be talking more about some of the other materials on this list, so I'm not going to get too much into fluorescent bulbs, but I'll just note that mercury which is obviously very problematic in the environment, has made a priority, and that's why there are programs for fluorescent bulbs and mercury thermostats. Same with PCBs, which can be found in lighting ballast, so that's why those are prioritized for special recycling management. We accept lead acid batteries and other forms of batteries, but they go different places, and we'll talk more about that. And the other materials that you see there at the bottom, we will be covering in more detail, so I will save that for later. Mattresses are sort of a special exception here because we are very excited to have mattress recycling here in the county, and it's very recent, but it is also a much more meaningful program than some of the other programs here that might be more critically viewed as boutique recycling programs, in that it's not necessarily managing large amounts of material that are really going to make a dent in that pie chart that you saw. And it's not necessarily particularly problematic materials for landfilling. Mattresses are a problem for landfilling, and so that's a meaningful program. Clothing and textiles can be brought to for reuse, obviously, at thrift stores, but Goodwill also we have 2 stores here, and their program also includes accepting non-wearable clothing and textiles to be recycled into things like shop rags. We'll be diving very much more into plastic film and bags, so we'll save that. Tennis balls are collected at some gyms, including the Edge here in Chittenden County, and made into things like new tennis courts. Plastic caps can be recycled at City Market through the Gimme 5 program and turned into things like toothbrushes and other plastic items that are then sold at City Market. Crayola markers are collected at schools, and snack wrappers are collected at REI, and contact lenses are collected at eye doctors, some eye doctors. And those last three programs are all through TerraCycle, which sort of specializes in these niche material programs. So they partner with other companies, Crayola, REI, and ophthalmologists in this case, to be able to accept those materials and recycle them. With that, we will break for questions. Do we have questions, Rhonda?
We've had two that I just answered, not necessarily related to what we were just discussing. So one was about batteries being, can they bring them to the environmental depot? And yes, you can bring batteries there. But you have to make an appointment in order to do that, or you can drop batteries off of any of the drop-off centers except for Burlington. And then the other one was about paint aerosol cans and first aid aerosol cans. Those have to go to the environmental depot. And again, you will have to make an appointment.
Thanks, Rhonda.
That's it.
Okay, then we're going to start our deep dives, and we're going to start with batteries. This video is produced by Call to Recycle, which is the destination, or at least the intermediate destination for the batteries that CSWD collects. They go on from us, our hands, to Call to Recycle, and you'll find out what happens to them from there.
Did you know you can recycle your rechargeable batteries and in some areas your single-use batteries? Recycling helps to divert batteries from our landfills and save valuable resources by giving batteries a new life. With Call to Recycle, batteries never die. Call to Recycle collects and recycles over 11 million pounds of batteries each year. That's the weight of over 1,000 elephants. You can drop off used batteries to any of the tens of thousands of public collection sites across the USA and Canada. Call to Recycle's contracted sorting facilities separate the batteries by type and chemistry. There are two common types of consumer batteries, single-use and rechargeable. Each type is sent to corresponding facilities for processing. For example, in rechargeable battery recycling, batteries can be fed by conveyor belt into an automated crusher to separate usable chemicals and metals, then melted down at high temperatures in a huge furnace. Molten metal is deposited into large and small molds called pigs and hogs. Recovered metals include cobalt, lead, nickel, iron, cadmium, and zinc. The metals are used to make a variety of stainless steel products, new batteries, cement additives, rubber, paint, ceramic, and so much more. Battery recycling is not just what we do, it's our mission. Visit calltorecycle.org to find a location near you.
So lead acid batteries are the exception in that those are heavier, and so we prefer to keep them local. They're also not always sealed, and so those go to a local private partner. And the schematic you see here is not necessarily where they're winding up. This is go for resources process, but the takeaway from this diagram that you can have is that all components of the battery are being recycled. So the lead, the acid, and the plastic casing are all recycled. And that's one thing that's possible through special recycling programs where the program is designed around one particular material. And so it can be more targeted and comprehensive in terms of material capture. We would be remiss if we didn't talk about battery safety, and that's for a few reasons, but the big one is because batteries are all around us, and often those batteries are lithium ion, which are notoriously flammable. So as we've innovated with batteries, we've moved from nickel cadmium rechargeable batteries, which were toxic, to now the flammability issues and fire risk of lithium ion. And I knew that I was going to hammer that batteries are all around us, but I must say that even just in looking around my house, I couldn't believe all the places that I saw lithium ions, toothbrushes and speakers and just numerous examples. Everything these days seems to have a battery, and often it's a lithium ion because of their performance. This guidance is for if you're bringing your batteries to us. There are other battery collection sites that are private, like many hardware stores collect them. But if the battery is damaged, which you can tell if it's swollen is the most obvious thing, you should put it in a plastic bag immediately to isolate it and make sure it's not going to get sparked by contacting other batteries or so forth. You can, on more traditional batteries, if they're not damaged, you can just tape the terminals with clear packing tape. We would ask you to use clear packing tape, please. And anything that's higher voltage, that's a good idea to tape the terminals. And we collect the lead acid batteries separately on racks at drop-off centers. Everything else goes in together to a battery collection at our drop-off centers, and we do the sorting and preparation for transport to Called Recycle. We are very fortunate here in Vermont in that not only does Called Recycle do our recycling for us, they're our outlet, but they also administer a product stewardship program, which allows us to recycle rechargeable and non-rechargeable batteries here for free. So we are the only state in the country where both battery types, basically all batteries, are recycled through a product stewardship program that is funded, well, it can be done for free. And here that is through a product stewardship program funded by manufacturers. And Call to Recycle takes care of making sure the manufacturers are paying their dues, so to speak, to fund the program. We also have a very high accessibility rate because we have both waste districts, public entities, and private retailers accepting batteries. And that's partly because it's free to do. And we, because of all these accessibility and our the opportunity to do it free, we've historically been very, very good on a per capita ranking at battery recycling. We've been at the very top of the nation per capita until the pandemic, when obviously things changed a bit and battery collection slowed down. And so there's an opportunity now for us to get back to where we deserve to be. Rhonda, what do you have to say about that?
I would say get those batteries into a drop-off center or a local retailer that are collecting them. And let's get back on top. Woohoo! Nice.
Moving off batteries now to a material that gets we get a lot of questions about because, again, there's a lot of it. I'm sure you find a lot of this in your trash, or maybe you already participate in film recycling. This is an external program. We don't collect plastic film from residents, in part because store drop-off is so robust. Many of the grocery chains here still take plastic bags and other film, and we were going to obviously emphasize that there are lots of other things beyond just the grocery bags that stores are no longer here in Vermont allowed to use that can be recycled, and that's why those stores still have collection out. It's very efficient. You're already going back to the store to get your groceries, and the truck that's bringing it back to the distribution hub is already going back to the distribution hub to pick up more shelf product. So the transportation of this recycling program is very efficient, and the specs are pretty wide in that it can be number 2 or number 4 film of any color. How do you know number 2 and number 4? We'll get to that. But one of the other things that helps is that we know that most of the grocery chains here, Price Chopper, Shaw's, and Hannaford for sure, participate in the Trex program. So they're marketing it to the Trex company, which makes the composite decking you see there. But that also helps us to know very precisely what is and is not accepted, because it's easy to get information about what Trex's specs are.
And just, I want to add, Ethan, that you just want to check with your local grocery store if their collection bins are out during this time, during the pandemic. So.
Thanks. And my experience, it is a little bit store by store, not necessarily store chain by chain, but literally store by store, because it seems to be the store managers who make that call about whether they're still recycling their internal film, almost certainly, regardless, but whether or not they're choosing to take it from their customers and residents is a store manager decision often. And it can be a little bit tough to find those bins. But I did find that all 3 Hannafords I visited did have their bins out. So the collection from residents is still happening at many stores. So to get to this slide, there is now how to recycle labeling, which is wonderful. It's a real improvement. Instead of putting what is often misconstrued as a recycling symbol, and it's actually a resin code on things, they're actually now providing instruction about how to recycle it. So it says store drop-off on there. And then as you see, there is a link along the side that will bring out more information about what can go into store take-back programs, film collection, and so forth. So that's a great new program to better label materials. And it's a lot of materials, not just plastic film, but there's still a lot of things that are only labeled with a resin code. And what you see there, those numbers are resin codes telling you what the type of material is. So what you want to be bringing to stores is polyethylene only, either low density or high density polyethylene. That's number 2s or number 4s. And if it's not printed, and many films are not, then you'll have to generalize based on the type of bag or packaging it is. And here you see examples of the wide range of products that have recyclable film packaging. So there are a lot of asterisks, and that's because there's always a qualifier. So pre-sliced, Wonder Bread bags are the right stuff. The cellophane windows in a paper bread bag are not the right stuff. That needs to be trash. Some baked goods bags are the crinkly stuff that is not number 2 or number 4, but some are the heavier duty, more stretchy, like plastic, and so forth. Potato and cranberry bags I singled out as some of the produce bags that are the right stuff, but it's worth noting that there are a lot of pre-washed salad mix bags, for example, that are almost always the wrong stuff. So you got to be very mindful, and please don't extend the generalizations. You either got to find the how to recycle label or resin code, or it's got to be on this list. If it's not, assume that it's not recyclable and store take back. And that brings us to construction materials, which we'll cover very quickly. These are, in the case of clean, unpainted plywood and asphalt shingles, landfill banned materials, as many of special recyclables are, that in the case of asphalt shingles, go to Myers to be ground up, processed there, and then used as a additive to gravel roads. The drywall is ground up, and the gypsum in drywall is used as a to improve soils. It's added to soil, and again, that needs to be unpainted drywall, of course. And then the plywood, as long as it's unpainted, can be ground up and used to make particle board type materials. So those are building materials and what they are going to. And we'll pause again for questions now.
Hot diggity. All right. So Nancy's got 2 questions. One is relating to the special recycling elsewhere, the Gimme 5 program, the caps. She said she thought the latest advice was that we could leave caps on containers. Nancy, you can, by all means, empty out, give a little rinsel dinsel do you, and put those caps back on. That's fine too. But there's also the Gimme 5. So it's not just for caps, it's for number 5 plastics. And we will be sending a link out to all of these special recycling, where you can take them and what they accept. So hold on to your seats for that, and you'll be getting that in 2 days. Nancy also has a question about the flip-floppy plastic or the plastic film. Is it a problem, Ethan, if there is a paper label on the plastic?
Yes, they would prefer not to have paper labels, so rip them out, cut them out. But yes, that is a contaminant that they would prefer not to have to deal with. I will also use this opportunity to mention that stores are not going to be too enthusiastic about taking a lot of your bubble wrap, because it takes up a lot of space in their bins, which means they have to empty them more often. And really, they're just doing this as a service to their customers. So the moment that it becomes too much of a hassle for stores, they're likely to pull their bins. And hassle can be because people are putting too much bulky material in there, or because they're putting the wrong stuff in there. So please don't jeopardize a store take back program by trying to recycle film that is iffy. There's so much that is clearly recyclable that we encourage you to do that and let the rest go.
And I would suggest too, because I work with schools that collect flip-floppy plastic for recycling, just call the store. And if you have like a giant bag of, say, the bubble wrap or whatever, just call the store and see if maybe they want you to throw it on the back dock, and they'll bail it up with the other stuff that's pushed in the store. So, check with the store if you have a large amount of acceptable material, because that's what my schools do. All right, so Ginger has a question. She originally asked about hearing aid batteries and whether we accept those for recycling, which I told her, yes, we do. And then her question was senior housing residents without cars, what are they supposed to do? And I don't know if you have an answer to that, Ethan. I have a suggestion.
So I think I probably know what your suggestion is. So I will cover the other side, which is that if you need to hire someone to do that. There are companies that would be willing to bring your special recycling to where it needs to go. Those are called special haulers, and we maintain a list on our website.
And I would also contact Call to Recycle. They do have boxes, so you can collect all of the batteries in this box, and then maybe you could ask somebody to drop them off at the environmental depot or something in that nature. Or Call to Recycle, I actually have like a mail-in label. I'm not sure for residents how that works, but I know that my schools have boxes that they collect batteries in, and then somebody takes that to a drop-off center to get recycled. So there are options. And if that doesn't answer your question, you can always, contact one of us and we'll try to help you out, find a solution to that problem.
And since I didn't anticipate what Rhonda was going to say very well, I'll just say that front porch forum and coordinating with your neighbors is always a good strategy. Since everybody generates these materials, everybody's got batteries, send out a front porch forum post and just find out whether somebody might be going, and or offer to do the next run yourself for your neighborhood.
All right, Ethan, Donna wants to know, can you say again where to take plastic bags? But do note that in the follow-up email, you will have a resource list that will list where you can take each and every one of these special recycling items, but just to repeat.
Thanks, that's right. We will be sending out more detail in a resource list for the deep dive, including where this stuff can go. All the national grocery chains that have a presence here have film recycling programs. Whether they all have bins out is a store by store variable. But Shaw's, Hannaford, and Price Chopper all participate in the Trex program, and I have seen film collection at stores from each of those chains in recent months.
Yeah, I know that Hannaford and Shaw's in Williston both have collection bins out for flip-floppy plastic or plastic film.
City Market's film program was a casualty of the pandemic. So City Market is still accepting small plastics for the Give Me Five program, bottle caps in particular, but they are no longer accepting grocery bags, we know.
All right, Ethan, I've got a few. Sally wants to know, how about the plastic bags that hardware mulch comes in? Do you happen to know that one, or should she check the Trex website on that?
I don't know about mulch bags. I know that anything that's going to have residue or dust in it is something that they're probably going to tell you is they don't want. If it's the right material and you can get it residue free, then and you can confirm it's the right material, then you could include it. But that's why we're very cautious about getting into things like wood pellet bags and things like that, because they usually have residue.
And again, I would emphasize too, like if it's not on that Trex list, which we will be sending you a link to as well, if it is not listed on that list or does not say number 2 or number 4 clearly on it, do not put it in the collection bin. Please and thanks.
Yes. And then Jordan wants to know if stores would also take these materials from businesses that have like shrink wrap and larger plastic bags from shipping, from items that they receive in shipping.
It's a very good question. In general, that's a tough sell for stores because it's just one more thing that they need to do. But some are willing to make special arrangements with businesses. I'm happy to, work with businesses also to find good arrangements there. There are a few different options. If it's not a huge amount of material, one would be to reach out to stores and find out whether they'd be willing to have like a leave it on their loading dock type of arrangement. But happy to talk with you more, Jordan, about options. Any other questions?
Let's see here.
I do. So, well, not a question, a comment. So thanks, Hen, for commenting on this. But Hen says Front Porch Forum or Old North and Mutual Aid could also be a good resource for older community members or those without personal vehicles. So thank you very much for that suggestion.
And another option would be to call 211, which is the United Way's community resource line. And they have information about all kinds of services that serve different segments of our communities. So places that serve people who are hungry, people who are elderly, who have disabilities. They have just a huge database of resources at their hands.
Excellent, and that wraps that session up.
All right. Well, we'll keep moving then. And that means that I am off the hook and we're moving on to other materials, in particular electronics.
All right, so that's me. So I get to tell you all about, we have in Vermont this amazing resource called Good Point Recycling that a lot of people don't know about, but they are a national leader in ethical and fair trade recycling of electronics. They do amazing work. It's, you know, as it says here, 100 million pounds of electronics diverted since 2001. This is one of those places where Vermont is still #1. We have the highest tonnage of electronics recycled per capita. And that seems to have held up during the pandemic as well. So through their process, nothing gets exported for disposal. So you hear stories sometimes on the news or wherever that, you know, we're just sending our junk overseas and people are, you know, getting exposed to dangerous chemicals and basically doing all of our dirty work for us. This company keeps that from happening for the recycles, for the electronics that are taken to them. So how do they do that? There we go. So first, they use people, not machines. So that creates jobs both here in Addison County and around the globe to the various places that are their outlets. And the very first step is they sort through everything that comes in. And if it's something that just needs a minor repair or refurbishment, but then could be used, you know, continue its life as a TV, they sort that out into the good pile, and that gets shipped out to various repair and refurbishment companies, some of which are partnerships they've had for a long time in Africa and South Asia, where they just have a lot of really skilled technicians who have gotten used to, over the years, to working hard to keep things going instead of throwing them out and replacing them. Things that don't fit into that good category get deconstructed piece by piece, screw by screw. Everything gets taken apart. And again, this is another place where they distinguish themselves from others. And it's really common in this world to just put everything through a chipper. And then, you know, and then machines will separate the various kinds of metals out from the glass and the plastic. They don't do that. They take them apart, because even if the entire TV might not be usable as a TV because the screen's broken or something, a lot of the parts inside are still really useful, perfectly good, and can be used by those repair and refurbishment shops. And so they send some of those out to those shops. They also keep an enormous inventory at their warehouse in Middlebury. You can go online if you need some obscure piece from a computer that got discontinued 10 years ago. It's a good chance they might have it. They've got it all itemized and inventoried. And then after that, the pieces get recycled. And we don't have a good way to show how the recycling process happens. What we have is a video that shows how Christmas lights get recycled at a plant in China. And it's a good example that shows sort of how this process works. So with the Christmas lights, we send over gazillions, I don't have a solid number on that, of Christmas lights. And these folks work hard at taking them apart and creating new raw materials.
You basically cut pieces of Christmas tree lights, throw them into those boxes. That's not smoke, that's steam, because there's blades spinning around very fast and they're chopping these up. And if you didn't have water going in there, it'd overheat and explode. What comes out is just this goop of water, plastic, copper, and glass. And that is shoveled onto tables that you can see are tilted upwards, and there's water flowing over them. And the light stuff, the plastic and the glass, washes right off for the most part. And the heavy stuff, the copper, you can see lingers further down, and that's how you separate it. And so you can see the copper falling off right there. And this concept, if anybody has ever tried canning for gold, it's the same idea. You just use.
So just before we move on to Rhonda with the lamps, so what they end up with at the end of that process is a wheelbarrow full of metal that they've scooped out from that slurry, and that all can get turned back into wire to make next year's Christmas lights. And then the plastic insulation, you know, that's around the wires. At the time this was recorded, those were being sold to a company that manufactured soles for slippers. So Christmas tree lights were getting turned into slippers and more lights, so you could sit around your tree the following year, maybe wearing last year's Christmas lights. Take it away, Rhonda.
That's pretty awesome. All right, so you are stuck with me for the wrap up of the slideshow at least. We are gonna dive into fluorescent lamps, or you might hear me call them mercury lamps or bulbs. These are those fluorescent lamps in many shapes and sizes. You got long tubes, you got short double tubes, you got twisty curly Qs, you got the U shape, the circulars. They come in all shapes and sizes. So they are fluorescent lamp, and they contain mercury. So one, it is illegal for you to toss them in the trash. But cool thing is they are covered under a Vermont product stewardship program, and we have recycling options for them. Last year at CSWD's facilities, both the depot and the drop-off centers, we collected nearly 40,000 pounds of fluorescent lamps for recycling. And I wanted to show you this picture because I think it is a cool process, and I find it like super cool that the entire lamp is recycled, from the electronics to the glass, the metal, plastic, even the mercury and the phosphor powder in there are recycled and put back into lamps, new lamps and or other products. So yay, get those lamps. So if you've got a broken one though, and especially those short little curly Q ones, pop it in a Ziploc bag because it'll keep you safe and it'll keep us at the drop-off centers and the depot safe as well. And if you have a broken bulb with a long tube, just let somebody know and put it in the box backwards so the sharp edge isn't sticking out. All right, so you can, yeah, there we go. Next is like one of them, like an exciting topic or an exciting material for us, because this is new: mattress recycling. Now, at Sleepwell Recycling in Burlington, they are not doing the recycling, but they are actually deconstructing mattresses and box springs and then sending each of the components off to be recycled into new stuff. This is the first and only, as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong out there, mattress collection site for recycling in our state. So we are super psyched that it is here and convenient in Chittenden County. The right side here of the pictures from top to bottom, that's all of the foam coming out of the mattresses. That will get recycled into padding for carpeting. So woohoo. The wood in the middle picture will be sent to McNeil so that we can keep that 100% renewable energy for Burlington. And the last one is just metal scrap, and that'll go in the scrap metal bin, get made into new like trains, planes, automobiles, who knows what, maybe a skyscraper elsewhere. So it's very cool, up to date. So these guys opened up in like July or so of last year of 2020. And so far they have recycled or deconstructed over 3,000 mattresses. And just a little heads up, it is cheaper to go through them and your mattresses and box springs get recycled than it is to drop them off for disposal in the landfill. As Ethan alluded earlier, they are big, they're bulky, they take up a whole lot of space. And let's get them recycled and made into new things and not just sitting in our landfill. I want to show you this video, or we're going to show you this video of the boys, the brothers at Sleepwell Recycling doing their thing. So you can see it's pretty laborious work, but man, what a great way to get out your frustrations. All right, so last special recycling material on today's deeper dive is latex paint. Now, again, paint is covered under a state stewardship program. All paint, oil-based paint, as long as it's architectural or house paint, so latex paint and oil-based paint. Today, we're going to be focusing on latex paint because, because it's cool and because CSWD actually recycles some of the latex paint that comes into the environmental depot into local color. So if you look at the graphic here, we collected, at the environmental depot, and that's where you want to drop all your paint off. Our drop-off centers do not collect paint. It has to go to the environmental depot and by appointment only currently. So we collected 24,000 gallons of latex paint. Now, out of that 24,000 gallons, 47% of that went to a chemical landfill. It was waste. Most of that is probably because we, the people, don't know how to store our latex paint. So paint should not be stored outside in freezing temperatures. It ruins it, all right? So once it freezes, that's gonna be part of that 47% waste. What I would love to see for next year's numbers is that 47% be reduced down and that we were recycling more, whether it's made into our local color or recycled in Canada. But let's increase the recyclability by storing our paint correctly. You have a link to Paint Care, which is actually the program that that ensures the recycling of all types of paint. And so we're going to send you a link, and it has a lot of different ideas. But reuse, reduce, buy what you need, reuse, give it to a neighbor if they can use it. And in those two cases, if you can't meet those two things, then definitely bring it to the environmental depot. But paint can last, as I asked the paint guys, can last 10 to 12 years if stored properly. So please don't store it in your freezing cold garage. And we want to decrease the 47%. So I have the pleasure of sometimes working with these guys. So I invaded their space and I made a short video of how latex paint is made into local color at the Environmental Depot's local color paint warehouse.
So welcome to Local Color. This is where all your latex paint gets turned into new latex paint. This is what we call a Gaylord. This is like a typical household load. As you can see, some cans are older than others. And then I'll take you through, the boys will take you through the process.
I'm the can opening specialist. What that means is I open up the paint cans. We have an automated paint can opener, but I choose to use the old-fashioned method of the screwdriver and hammer. If I can't get into my first couple of tries with a screwdriver, I do one of these, and then I can pop it, no problem. The tops that are metal go right into the metal recycling area, and then I look at the paint, and this is hard as a rock. So what I do, the paint, hard parts go into the waste paint. So this is the paint that we won't use. And then the metal container, the can here, goes into the paint can crusher. And I do this until there's no paint left, and it's glorious work to see the end product. And Bob is very supportive.
After we collect the paint and they're brought over here, we actually open each can and so that we can determine what we have for colors and also the quality of the paint. Once it is open, then I immediately try to make an assessment on what I have for a color and what color it's going to go into. Now, some of these colors we will use for our own paint, and then we have another company that will take the colors that we aren't using or the paint that's not of good quality, and they make new paint. So that's what I'm doing now. It's just simply going through, separating it out, and getting it into whatever the appropriate drum is. filtering the paint, we're utilizing screens that come in through the drop-off centers. Anybody that drops these off, they leave them with us, because when you open the cans, they have a certain amount of debris on them. This is what we consider our first screen, so we can reuse those screens. Also, some of these cans are nothing more than trash, so we really can't recycle. But any of the metal cans that are good, we save out. We actually crush them down and get those recycled as a number one, or not a number one, but a metal recycling. So once you collect the paint, then we can set it up and mix it. Get it ready. This is actually a fungicide that kills all the mildew and bacteria in the paint itself. And mix it. It only takes 50 milliliters. So once we complete the mixing process, we've already sorted out our color and quality. And as I said, mixed it. I bring the drums over here and then strap them into this inverter, put on a spout, and then I can lift it and get the paint strained and in buckets.
And voila,
Voila, just like that.
we've got local color.
So that is the process, kind of sped up there a little bit, but and I know some of that was hard to hear. The heater was on, and but I wanted to get something together for you guys to see today because I find the process very fascinating, and I don't think a lot of people know. And I did see somebody said, Jordan, yeah. So Jordan was like, and if Jordan remembers correctly, it is cheaper. So yes, it is cheaper. It is it's $11 a gallon for a local color. So yeah, but again, it can't be made into local color if we're not storing our paint correctly. So let's reduce, reuse, and recycle if we have to. All right. So.
One follow-up question on the mercury bulbs. If a long bulb that's broken, what do you do? Should it go in the box, broken end up, broken end down, something else?
You could pop it in the box, broken end in. So slide it in with the broken end down because then we won't get cut. Yeah, and that'll be much safer in transport. One other thing I wanted to say about the long bulbs too is if you tape them to travel with them, I wouldn't recommend that, but if you do, please remove the tape before putting them in the box. Otherwise, we have to take them all out of the box and untape them because we cannot ship them all taped together. So just a note on preparation. Any other questions out there?
No, we have taken care of them.
All right, question answerers, terrific. We do have a little time left, so we actually did not anticipate having this problem of 10 minutes of time for questions that don't exist. We'll certainly give people a chance to digest and we're here.
Yeah, and you can always like follow up with us as well. So you'll have our email addresses. And again, we'll follow up email will be coming out with a huge resource list of where you can take all of these different items. But if you run into questions along the way and you like, you're thinking about it between tomorrow and so on, please don't hesitate to contact Ethan. He's got all of the answers. But you can contact any one of us. I was just joking.
All right, Hilda wants a quick reminder on which batteries need to be taped with the clear tape. Ethan?
So anytime you see a damaged lithium battery, like if your cell phone starts to look pregnant, that's a sign that it has a damaged lithium battery in it, and that is a huge fire hazard. So that's when you would want to immediately bag it in a Ziploc and to isolate it and get it into a battery collection as soon as you can. As far as routine taping of terminals, that's if it is a higher voltage primary battery, like over 9 volts, or most rechargeables, where if you can identify the terminals, that's going to be. No, Rhonda, go ahead.
No, it's just lithium batteries. You don't have to tape them. It just, it just decreases the potential of them making connection, because all the batteries do still have a bit of juice in them. So it'd be lithium in the high voltage ones, but you don't have to, but it would be greatly appreciated, because once you drop them off at a drop-off center or at the environmental depot, we are sorting through them, and we're taping up all of the lithium and high voltage batteries, and then sorting them into different chemistries, and then they go to the environmental depot and get sorted again. So just to double check. But yeah, that's a great question.
Sorry to talk over you, Rhonda. Rebecca just asked a question I had in mind as well. How is someone to know what kind of battery they're looking at? How do they identify a lithium battery versus?
So you can typically see it on the battery itself. It'll say lithium ion. It'll usually tell you the chemistry. It'll be teeny tiny, so you might want to get out your magnifying glasses. I feel like I had to buy like stronger reading glasses to be able to sort through batteries, but or it'll have like nickel cadmium on it. Those you don't have to worry about, but the lithiums, and then the button cell ones. So the bigger fat thin ones, the bigger thin ones, usually with a CR on it. Again, you don't have to like worry that much about it. I'm just thinking, if you know what if you know it's a lithium battery, it'd be cool if you could tape the ends, but you don't have to. And use packing tape, not like Scotch tape or duct tape.
And I was going to answer that question differently and just say that basically anything that gets plugged in via USB to an electronic device these days, assume that's a lithium battery. Like that almost always lithium battery these days, because they just perform so much better. They last longer and so forth. So these days, electronics almost always lithium batteries. So treat them that way. If it's not meant to be consumer removable, meaning if it's not obvious how you're supposed to remove that battery, assume that you're not meant to remove it. And then you can bring it to our drop-off centers in the unit, and we will recycle those electronics. Did I get that right, Rhonda?
Yep.
Excellent.
All right, Michelle had a question too. Can you take leftover paint to other places like paint stores? Yeah, so there are paint stores. They have limits. So I think their limits are mostly 5 gallons, I think. Check with the store, but with the paint care link that we're going to send in the resources, it has a list of all of the drop-off sites throughout our state. There are 83 drop-off places throughout Vermont. So check the paint care thing to see what retail outlets do accept, but they know that they have limits. And not all of them will, maybe they all do accept oil-based too, but I would check with where you want to drop it off. Good question.
And I'll use this as an opportunity to plug product stewardship, because the reason why a lot of private retailers are willing to take paint or to take batteries is because there are product stewardship programs for those materials that fund the recycling. So those retailers aren't having to, it's not costing them anything. They're able to provide that service to their customers.
Great.
All right, question about not really the special recycling we're talking about, but broken glass bottles or window glass.
So we don't want anything that's not a single-use glass container. So window glass is out immediately, and that's going to be trash. And that's true of drinking glasses or other things that are not intended for single use. But a mason jar we'll call single use. And if it's cracked, that's fine. If it's in many pieces, that needs to go in the trash. So yes, glass does sometimes get broken a little bit on its journey to us, and that's not the end of the world. But we don't want fragments of glass in the recycling.
And that's more to protect those people that are actually picking it up curbside. Because once it goes into the truck, it's not going to be touched again by a human, but it's the pickup part of it that we're trying to protect those people that are working hard to pick up our stuff curbside. But great question.
Yep.
Donald has a question. Any thoughts on taking metals to commercial recyclers? Ethan?
Oh, we didn't talk about that. So thank you for the question, Donald. Our metal is our scrap metal items, which includes the other items we talked about that we service first, and then like refrigerators, and then can go to scrap metal, go to a local metal recycle dealer, local scrap metal dealer, All Metals Recycling. And metal, because it's such a valuable recycled material and infinitely recyclable, can stay regional. So it doesn't need to go too far, which is nice since it's heavy. And you are welcome to bring stuff directly to local dealers. All Metals Recycling is one of several metal dealers here in the county, and it's fine. Often sometimes they pay for it. If not paying for it, they'll take it for free. And so we don't really care whether you're bringing it to our drop-off centers or to them.
I heard word on the street is they don't pay for anything under 500 pounds.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. How about produce bags? Are they something that can go into the plastic bag recycling?
Yes. So produce bags are okay, as long as there are a few stores that use compostable produce bags. And anything that says biodegradable or compostable is not the right stuff. That is a deal breaker right off the top. So you're looking for a 2 or a 4, and produce bags will usually have that on them.
And if they don't put it in there. So Robin, did you want to do Ginger's question?
Sure. I was just typing an answer, but we've got two.
Oh, okay,
sort of
that's fine.
That's all right. No, we've got two sort of related things about styrofoam and packaging.
Okay.
So one is, why is there so much? And I was typing, but the short answer is, I can't tell you. I have noticed a lot of companies are switching over in their packaging. So it may be a factor of what products you're purchasing, but definitely if you are seeing a lot of styrofoam, let people know. You know, if it's a company that you've ordered from, send them an email and say, hey, I'm a customer and I try to do business with folks who have switched away from styrofoam to other kinds. If they hear it from their customers, that's the best way to drive change in the business world is they want to keep their customers happy. And then a related question about bubble wrap, air, pillows, like shipping pillows, styrofoam, peanuts and things. Are any of the shipping companies still taking those for reuse?
As far as I know, there are still local companies that take those packing materials for reuse. I have not checked in with them recently, so I'm not positive, but we have a number of them on our. So I'm confident. I can say with some confidence that at least some of those are still taking packed materials. And of course, that's the better option for that bubble wrap. That because the stores really don't want something that's mostly air, even if you pop most of the bubbles, and it's going to take up a lot of room in their bins. Don't pop the bubbles, and better yet, bring it for reuse to one of those local companies that we list on our website.
Yep, and especially, I mean, again, keeping in mind pandemic times, please do call ahead. Don't just assume because it's listed on our website that they're currently doing it. Times have changed quite a bit in the last year. So please just call, check, see if they're taking it. And then if they are, great. If they're not, give us a call and let us know. Call the hotline and let us know that they're not so that we can, do some updating as well.
And of course, it's really important to be clean for them because they're sending out, stuff to customers. And that's also true, of course, of film collection. If you've collected it from the slush on the street, it goes in your trash bin, period. Please don't jeopardize these programs that are all voluntary by putting stuff that is questionable in the bins.
All All right, so that wraps it up, and it is 1 o'clock.
Woohoo!
Nice. I see one question in the Q&A. Is that an active question?
We're good. We're good.
Great.
Hey,
Terrific.
comment.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining us. Really appreciate your bearing with us today on our first special recycling webinar. And know that we will be sending out a follow-up email with many things,
much
resources
information.
to check out, links to the videos we showed today, link to the recording of this webinar, and anything else that we can think of to throw at you.
Thanks, guys. Happy Thursday.
Please reach out if you have questions. We're happy to answer them. Bye,
Hotline
everyone.
number, Ethan, quick.
What? Hotline number 872-8111. Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 2:30. Give us a
There
ring.
you go.